Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. The Public Works Committee will come to order now that the chair is finally sitting down. We have a general agenda and a consent agenda. Let me inquire, are there any of the consent items to be pulled for discussion?
Motion to approve.
So move.
Second.
If there is no discussion, those in favor of approving the consent agenda items should say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That is approved, and we will go to item G1, please.
Item G1, resolution setting city policy on pre-qualification of construction contractors.
Thank you very much. Mr. Turner.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, as you recall, we discussed last month a process by which we could pre-qualify contractors that would work on certain projects. We, as staff, have been looking at the upcoming bond projects and have identified that the convention center, due to the criticality of its scheduling, and the public safety center renovation, due to the security issues associated with working in it, would be good candidates for having contractors pre-qualified. By having that process, if we got contractors who were pre-qualified to work in those kind of areas, we would have a higher assurance of having a successful project in both cases. One of the things the committee asked, you held it in committee for further information, and one of the things you asked is that we bring back additional information on how the selection or the pre-qualification process would work. What I've provided to you, and there's actually a larger version of this that I handed out, but what is in your book and a larger version handed out is a spreadsheet that explains both how this scoring would be done and also provides some examples of 3 hypothetical firms and how they would fare in the scoring system if adopted. There is one typo on the spreadsheet I need to tell you about, and that is on item 7, experience working on projects in the city of Winston-Salem. It should say give 10 points if the company has done 8 or more projects instead of 5. So if you'd make a note of that, I'd appreciate it. There are 15 categories in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 areas. I won't go through all of them, but what I would say is that we can break down every one of them into something gives you more points, less of that thing gives you less points. So for example, location of the project management office to the project. The closer you are, the more points you get in qualifying. You do not have to have a perfect score in order to be pre-qualified. A score of 7.5 on this weighted scale, and you can see in column 2 the category weight for each of the categories. You can also see, you can see in column 2 the category weighting for each of the areas, and you can see the individual weightings over on the far right-hand side of the main table. It says right after max points, you'll see the weights. What we've tried to do is focus on what the statute requires, which is that a pre-qualification process be rationally related to the construction or repair work, that it not require bidders to have previously been awarded contract work for the city, and that it allow bidders to submit their work history. So with those 3 restrictions, and guided by the methods that the state has used, we have, for its pre-qualification process, we've developed a revised or refined version that we think is appropriate for the city of Winston-Salem. We've tried to have conversations with each of the members of the committee individually to get your feedback. We've reflected your comments where possible. In some cases, there were requests that when we checked with the statute, we weren't able to actually implement those requests, but we have made modifications that we could within the restrictions of the statute. If you'd like, I'd go through them all, but they're there for your reading, and so if not, I'll take any questions you may have.
Thank you. Questions, comments? Mr. Montgomery, did you have?
My comments are in looking at the spreadsheet and how the balance is done here. I'm not sure. I question what this does in actually getting to the intent of what and why we're doing this, particularly when we look at some of the projects we're looking at, in the sense of, one, we're looking at timeliness and manner of what needs to be done in the convention project or a project such as that, or if we're looking at the public safety center and security issues, I'm having a difficult time correlating this process, being able to get a better contractor based upon the guidelines that are here for those two projects. And I understand how you go through and you look at it, but just when we look at experience, it's 37% of what we look at, and we look at capacity, and that piece, which is 6%, and then the pieces in there that you're looking at, I need some help correlating those pieces all together.
Certainly. When we look at security, the areas that we anticipate that the contractors will be able to demonstrate their experience working in secure buildings would be in the reliability score and their experience score. So they would be providing information on their experience working on similar projects to, say, to the Public Safety Center, and that would demonstrate their experience working in a security-sensitive area. When you look at timeliness, then we would be looking at their capacity as well as their experience. So for the convention center, we would be looking at those two areas as indicators of a contractor that would be successful in completing it.
And so for me, again, looking at those, if that's an impetus for us to look at this process, those areas and the percentage of what they're considered, even though I know this will be used on different projects, just the percentage of that consideration, to me, you could get a larger score, you could be perfect on those areas, and someone could get higher numbers in another area, but be better in terms of being working in secure areas, or even done some experience with those pieces in terms of convention or those timeliness that needs to be done there. So to me, I still have a strain in terms of looking at the process. I know I voiced last month in terms of just questions about putting in new processes that potentially eliminate others, and to me, I still don't have a clear place where my reservations are abated.
And one thing I probably should clarify for the committee is that these scores will not be used to select the final contractor. You'd still be doing the normal process for selecting the contractor, just to determine who would meet the minimum requirements. So if a company had a score of 7.8, another company had a score of 7.9, both of them are equally qualified, because the requirement is that you have a score of 7.5, and obviously both 7.8 and 7.9 exceed that requirement.
Mr. Clark.
Incorporated in the procedures, would you first come to council to get approval to use this on a project, so it would only be used on projects we approved it on?
We would be asking you to approve this process if you're comfortable as a committee, and then recommending it on the council for those two projects only. And if you decided you wanted to use it on any other, staff's not recommending that at this point, but you'd have it available if you chose to.
So,
but it would be used on each project only upon council approval.
Yeah, that's what I'm getting at. So this isn't a blanket thing. So that of all the projects we're doing for the bond thing, we're only talking about two of them.
Correct.
And to get back to Mr. Montgomery's comment, given the number of different categories, this, I think, truly is a minimum requirement, because I think most contractors could meet this, or a lot of them, I should say. I was thinking more, and this was before some folks were on the council here, when we rebuilt the water treatment plant. There's a case of that is a very, very specific type job that is probably unique to water treatment plants. And I do know that the folks that did it were from a long ways away.
New York City.
Yeah, because there aren't many folks that do it. And I think something like that would certainly, they may self-select. I don't know if anyone would bid on something like that, didn't know exactly what they were doing, but I could certainly see it on something like that where we would want people to. And again, there they would not have much experience with the city, but they hopefully would have a lot of experience with water treatment plants.
Correct.
I said the last meeting, I don't have any concern about this. I think it is broad brushed enough. It's not going to exclude anybody that's halfway qualified. I've always been concerned on our more specific projects, and I mentioned the water treatment is, I think, a very specific example, where we better be darn sure we've got the right person. Now, I was actually meeting with the fire chief today at the Harbor Station, which we're going to be renovating. To me, that would be something we just give for bidding for anybody, because that's more general contracting.
Correct. That's our plan.
Further discussion? Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion, we move it forward.
Okay. Is there a second? I'll second, but I'd also entertain a substitute to move forward without a recommendation.
I'll make that motion. That's a substitute to myself.
I'll second that. Move forward without a recommendation.
All right.
If there's no further discussion, those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? That's move it forward to the council without a recommendation. 3 in favor, none opposed, and 1 abstaining. And Mr. Montgomery abstained. All right.
Item
Thank
G2, information on LED street lighting.
Thank you very much. And Mr. Clark, I believe these
Yeah.
were principally your questions.
They were, and it has answered my question. I thank staff for it. And what I have learned is it is not a simple question on what a street light costs. There are, and I'll just pick mercury vapor as an example. There are 3 different sizes, I guess there are lumens, or however you want to measure it. And the numbers vary. The same thing with the high pressure sodiums. There are actually 5 different ones there. And the LEDs can have 6 different ones. So I would simply comment back to staff that we continue to look at this, and as it makes economic sense to replace ones, we do. We are anticipating that the LED cost will decline over time as that technology refines itself. And I would certainly encourage us to replace them as it makes economic sense.
Will do.
Certainly.
Other questions or comments? All right, gentlemen, thank you. Do members of the committee have any other items to be brought up today?
I did want to say on the last item, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
I just want to thank staff for putting together this contractor pre-qualification test. I know there was a lot of time and energy put into this, and there wasn't a whole lot of conversation. But I think we just want to get to a point where everybody has an opportunity to bid in the city. I'm okay with moving it forward without a recommendation, as you saw, just for these 2 projects only. Hopefully it'll come back to us, as you've stated, Mr. Turner, and we can continue to hammer it out for other bond projects.
All right, very good. Then is there anything else to come forward the committee today?
No.
Thank you very much, and thank you for staying with us. We are adjourned for the evening.